So let's take a look at some journals and how to keep a journal as a therapy tool. And I've talked in previous videos that the journal is a really good way to establish a connection between yourself. It's a really good way to get to know yourself. And I talk about journaling as a self-therapy tool, but I also believe in seeking out therapy alongside self-therapy. I think it's so important to not rely on solely solitary means of therapy. I apologize for less consistency at the moment with videos. It's definitely been a rough few weeks, and I've definitely getting some health issues. Potentially had a stress-induced seizure, which I'm still not sure. But anyways, this is how I keep a journal, and this is how I finish a journal. I've just finished my current journal 2 days ago. I finished it on the 22nd of November. I have this little ritual every time I start a fresh journal where I sit down with my old journal and I read through it and I highlight little bits, breakthroughs, key moments, and I write them all down in the new journal. I transfer the profound moments, the big breakthrough moments. So anyways, let's take a look at my journal that I've just finished. I try to keep it really fluid, and I mix journal entries with drawings, a saving plan, goals, just little aims. For example, I wanted to spend as little time as possible on my smartphone this year. Goals that aren't necessarily too hard, just small aims that I can check in on every now and then. I really like structure and I really like discipline, but in order for it to work for me and to avoid any disappointment if I can't meet the goals, I try to keep these goals as non-restrictive as possible. I set non-restrictive goals that don't necessarily have time limits. This is just like routine. I believe in routine, but I believe in a loose routine that's never going to set me up for disappointment. I've got some coffee reviews here. I went through a phase where I reviewed every ground coffee that I tried. If anyone's interested, the Sainsbury's Winter Spice Blend scored the highest. Here we have a picture that sparked the inspiration for the novel that I started earlier on in the year. I have a newfound love for writing, and this picture was the inspiration for the detective novel. As you can see, I watched Death Note for the first time. So whatever I'm fixated on at the time, I usually will do little sketches, little kind of doodles. I actually wrote a list of fixations, all the fixations that I've had over the past few years. I'm actually a little embarrassed, so hence the covering. But a lot of my fixations tend to be people and characters. So this is what some average entries might look like day to day. I usually keep it quite simple. I'll just list off how I'm feeling inside. I feel once you write something on paper, it tends to leave the brain a little easier. So whatever I'm feeling, I'll just allow myself to feel it, just sit with that feeling, however uncomfortable it might be. And I'll try to just alchemize that emotion onto paper. Watch the Minecraft movie. Here we've got when I started my YouTube channel, 7 subscribers, and I was kind of questioning if I should keep it going or not. I actually wasn't sure at that time, but I'm happy I'm still doing this and helping so many people. So now is the important stuff. This is the self-therapy breakthrough sections of my journal. These important breakthroughs aren't really planned. I try to do a therapy Thursday check-in where I try to sit down every Thursday, and that worked for a while, but a lot of these entries are just spontaneous moments of realization and self-discovery. They're sprinkled throughout the journal, and I try to highlight those points because these are the important breakthrough moments that I will transfer into bullet points and put in my newest journal. Bear with me. So this is when I discovered I was autistic, and this is a month after my assessment. I was quite a mess at this moment. I was in the process of unmasking, and I started experiencing regression. This is when I actually first started the YouTube channel. I realized I had a problem with defensiveness, and this was really difficult period. I realized how wrapped up I was in this layer of defensiveness, and I tried to break this down and try to come to terms with the fact that I had this wall up. I saw the world a lot more hostile than it was. Yeah, this was really hard. This is still something I have to work on every day, and this is more on unmasking. Just how I was never really in control of myself properly. I was always kind of running off people pleasing and trying to fit in. Like, before I knew that it was autism that I was dealing with, it was driving me to insanity trying to stick normal jobs and kind of function in the adult world. Things are very hard when you're neurodiverse. So useful to have the context. I had some really good therapists around this era who pushed me in the direction of a diagnosis, because I was so in denial about my disability that it took multiple therapists to basically highlight the fact that I most definitely was autistic, that it was worth pursuing. So thank you so much to those two therapists that I had. And here we have another little breakthrough. I realized how bad embarrassment was affecting me. Embarrassment is very irrational, and it's not our fault. It is a very human thing to have this fear of humiliation and not fitting in. But once I came to terms with this embarrassed feeling, I managed to break through this. I started the YouTube channel. Once I stopped worrying about people seeing it, friends from high school, realized that that's an irrational fear. You should never be fearful of being as real as possible. Here's another breakthrough. Stop looking for answers. It's actually a lot more simple. Remember that you are anxious. So yeah, I sometimes forget that I have very high baseline anxiety. Pretending that this isn't an issue is really unhelpful. You end up getting deeply frustrated because you feel like things are bothering you that shouldn't bother you, and it's okay to have high baseline anxiety. And it's really important to recognize this, because if you don't see to it, it will consume you, and you will just end up self-destructing or blowing up at people. And it's really important to kind of remember where a lot of these feelings come from. I had a realization that I always seem to try and orchestrate right moments. I get pretty bad OCD with doing and saying the right thing and not just letting things unfold organically. I learned that I just really struggle to just go with things and just let things happen. I don't need to control every situation. I can just step back and let things unfold. I don't need to try and interfere. I'm getting in my own way. Getting so anxious about trying to make the perfect moment and trying to do the right thing. You could give me the choice between chocolate and vanilla, and no matter which one I picked, it would just eat me up that I picked the wrong option. That was the wrong option. It is just OCD, intrusive, invasive thoughts. It's just anxiety. Here's another check-in, just little things. I wanted to try and socialize a bit more around this time. I regressed quite a bit socially. So those were a few examples of these therapeutic breakthroughs from my journal that I've just finished. And now we have the task of jotting down these key breakthrough points into the new journal, Journal 4. I hope I'm not confusing too many people. This is just what works for me. However, I am trying to be a lot less precious with the way that I journal. I used to get fixated on needing everything to be neat and like perfectly like presented, but like now I'm happy with just bullet points and boxes. I need to not be as precious. So here I am jotting down the key points, some of which we've just looked at. Addressed irrational fears like embarrassment. If you remember, we've just went over that one there. So yeah, after I sit and jot down a page of key breakthrough moments, I can start this journal. I can start writing my first entry. So there we are, Saturday, 22nd of November. A fresh journal has started.